multiple offer situations because I talk a lot about, which is common, and I talk a lot about it. So what does that mean? That means
few with the bosses view. You gotta sacrifice. You wanna move like bosses move.
YMA, Young Millionaires Association. Yeah, see, that's the association.
Welcome, guys, to the YMANation podcast, episode number 45. 45. It is your show today.
Yes.
Real Estate Wednesday. I am Joe Wallace, and this is
Rebecca Wallace.
And if you're on right now, make sure you like, comment, and
subscribe.
You see, I always just pause, and she just jump in there and subscribe.
Thanks. That was a great impression.
If you're on right now, also make sure down in the comment section you hashtag YMANation so your name can go into the drawing at the end of the month.
Yep.
We have a cash drawing.
And communicate with us. Let us know your feedback, thoughts, questions, all of that good stuff.
Definitely. Real estate too.
Real estate.
Yeah, people have questions. So last week we talked about putting a home under contract, part one. So this is part two.
This is part two.
We need a drum roll.
Yeah. So, yes, last week we did discuss the initial part of going under contract.
Right.
So this week, I'm not going to go fully back into last week, but we will just talk about, we got to the point where the buyer signs the offer and the agent is now in control of the offer, and they're going to submit that to the listing agent.
Got it.
Okay. So what happens after that, guys? Your agent is submitted the offer to the listing agent. The listing agent, in the allotted amount of time, in a timely manner, is going to present your offer to the seller and say, hey, this is what the offer is. The amount, the contingencies, what type of loan you're getting, everything that's in that offer, the listing agent is going to discuss with that seller.
Okay.
Then the seller can do one of three things, right? They can accept the offer as it is, which is great for you as the buyer.
Everything looks good.
Everything looks good. We like the offer as it is. They sign, and then you have a ratified contract, meaning this is the contract.
Everything's
right?
agreed.
Everything's agreed upon.
Seller, buyer.
Yep.
Thumbs up.
That's the easiest route,
okay.
Right? Not in this market, in this area.
Okay.
It's typically not that easy. A lot of agents can tell you that. Second thing that is possible, second possibility, is that the seller counter offers. So what is a counter offer? That means that there are things within the offer that you submitted that the seller wants to change. It could be the price. It could be the closing cost. It could be certain contingencies that you have in there. We went over contingencies last week, meaning, if it's contingent on an appraisal being done. Most of the time, a seller is not going to debate that because they know in order to get the loan, you have to have it appraised, and it has to appraise. So typically, that's not an issue.
Right.
Now, if it's cash buyer, it may be different, but we're talking about, 80% of buyers, what they're going to be looking at.
Are going through a actual mortgage lender.
Right. So they could say, we don't like the price point. We think our home is valued at X amount of dollars. That in this market, we see that they're not willing to contribute as much in closing costs because it's a seller's market.
Which means
that the sellers have the upper hand because there's not a lot of houses on the market for buyers to choose from. So they can up the prices, and they can not give you as much incentive on the seller to pay closing cost side. What does that do for you as the buyer? If you don't have a lot of cash sitting in the bank to cover all of the cost, then you could lose that deal.
So what that means is if I'm trying to sell a house and I got on the market and I have it on a say for 200,000, and someone comes and they have an offer of, you know what? How about we offer 190,000, and I could just say no. That's not going to accept that. It's too low.
If you're at 200,000, you're probably going to have more than one offer on the table, and you're probably going to have a selection that's probably going to go over
The 200,000. So if someone's coming up under, because people think the perception is I'm going to always try to offer lower,
get a bargain,
right?
But it depends on your market. So where we are in certain areas where we are, you're not going to find that bargain, right? You're not going to be able to go in and get a house 10,000 below list price, typically in this market in the upstate of South Carolina. There's too high a demand in certain price points. You're not going to be able to do that.
Unless I'm asking, right? Unless the house is like 600,000 and someone wants to offer 590,000, right?
Yeah,
a lot of people may not know what a price point is, so just to make sure.
Right, price point. Majority of the buyers are not going to be at that $600,000 price point. That's going to be a less percentage of buyers.
Right.
Most buyers are going to be under 250,000, especially first-time home buyers.
Right now, we're seeing like between 125 to 200 is the average. You think?
Yeah. So and because the demand is so much in that price point, that's why there's no inventory.
Right.
That makes it a seller's market. So if you get in a buyer's market, actually, I have a friend of mine that posted on Facebook, and she's in Georgia. She's in Kennesaw, Georgia, and they're having the same problem there.
Wow.
Where it's now a seller's market.
Kennesaw growing, that's why.
So, I mean, it's different areas. If they're high demand areas, you just have to understand where you're moving to and what the demand of that area is, and understand, hey, I'm probably going to have to put a full price offer in on this property.
Right.
Okay, so the seller can counter. If the seller counters your offer, and then the listing agent is going to send it back to your agent as your buyer's agent, and your buyer's agent is going to say, okay, this is what they came back and countered with. Then the ball's in your court as the buyer. You can say, I agree with the changes that the seller made. I want to move forward and initial where it needs to be initialed on the changes. And then you're in a ratified contract. Or you can say, you know what, I don't like these changes, and you walk away. You go find you another property.
Right.
So those are two.
The third one?
The third one is the seller can decline the offer altogether.
Because they just think it's just too low. And
it could have too many contingencies. If you're in a multiple offer situation, if you're in a USDA loan and you're competing against an FHA loan, then it could be the loan types, because those loans are more strenuous and they take longer to close. And if someone wants to close quickly, they're going to do conventional or FHA or cash, because cash can typically close pretty quick, like 2 weeks, depending on the title work and any other contingencies that are taking place in the contract. So if they decline, then you have a choice as a buyer. You can say, okay, I want to rewrite the offer and make it better. Like maybe you're going USDA, but you have enough cash to go FHA, so you're going to change the loan product.
Right. And then the seller has the option to even consider that?
Then you resubmit the offer, and then the seller consider the new offer. Right? Again, in this market, if you don't present your highest and best offer initially, or at least close to that, then you could lose the house that you want. Which brings me to my next point, which is multiple offer situations. Because I talk a lot about, which is common, and I talk a lot about it. So what does that mean? That means that there's a lot of buyers that have agents or don't have agents or whatever. There's a lot of buyers who have written up offers and presented it to the seller. As the seller, they have a choice. They can take whatever offer they have on the table, and they can pick the best, whatever they think is the best offer, and they can take it. And then all the other offers get rejected. Right?
Which would make common sense. I would do the same. If I had a house and it's in that price point, I'm getting like everyone starting to offer. Same thing if I had a car and I had it for sale and a person drove by and started and like, how much you asking for that car? $15,000. How about I give you $14,500 and then someone else drive by and say I'll give you $15,000 for it. I'm going to go with that person that just that said $15,000.
Right. So the seller has the option, or what we also see happen is that they will call for highest and best. What that means is that they're saying to all the buyers who submitted an offer, you have a choice. You either take your offer back and present us with a better offer than this, which is your highest and best offer, or if this is your highest and best, then you keep your offer where it is, and then once all the highest and best are submitted, we'll choose the one out of that pool
that fits best for the buyer.
That fits best for the seller.
Fits best for the
fits
seller.
best for the seller.
What's interesting about that concept is, as the buyer, and you're thinking, wow, they're asking for highest and best, and I have no idea who I'm competing against,
Yeah,
so I don't know what they're offering.
Clue. And it's even harder for the real estate agents because we're trying to advise you, but at the end of the day, I'm going to use my favorite phrase. If you have to sleep on it, you're not going to sleep in it.
I heard it.
If you have to sleep on it, you're not going to sleep in it. Meaning you have to make up your mind and you have to know where you're coming in at and what you have to offer to be able to be in that situation and win. So that's why I stress so much to people, you have to have savings. You have to have cash. Like if you're going in cash low and not cash heavy, it makes it so hard to be competitive. Like extremely difficult to be competitive. I don't care if you're going up against one other offer.
Right.
That one other offer they could not be asking for any closing cost at all. Right? But you're asking for $3,000 in closing costs. So even though that's not all the closing cost, it's something. And you've just lost that offer for $3,000.
Because whoever's trying to sell the home is saying, I could keep that
$3,000
in
my pocket.
Right.
So, I stress it because I see so many people that come into the home buying situation and they don't have that savings or, even a 401k, because you can use a 401k normally, depending, check with your 401k people. I don't want to give any false information.
The
but
401k people. Make sure
whoever
you check with your 401k people.
manages your 401k, through your job
Right.
or whatever, then you make sure that there's no
contingencies
anything
or what the fees
to hold you
are.
back,
Right.
right.
Because normally there's fees if you pull from your 401k.
Okay, yeah. So you
Or
just want to
penalties.
make sure there's no penalties or anything like that. So that's research. We talk about research that you want to do on your end. But, if you don't have a 401k or you don't have savings, then really you need to start there when you're talking about purchasing. We talked about credit. We've talked about savings. We've talked about, going through the numbers and what you should budget for when you want to purchase a home and things like that. But to be competitive, no matter what market you're in, especially in a seller's market, if you're not cash heavy, then you're going to probably put yourself in multiple offer situations multiple times, and it's going to become exhausting and frustrating.
Because you're like, I found this house. I love this house. I put in an offer, and I got outbid on it. Boom. So the house is gone. Then I'm going to the next house. Do you experience that again? Yes.
I'm going to tell you, I had a buyer. This was probably fall of last year. And we went to a house, and the price point that they were in was very competitive. I think there was like 12 showings. There were people lined up at the house to get into the house, the showings back to back.
Wow. 12?
Yes.
Wow.
And because of the price point, we won the offer, by the way. And they are happily in their house now. But one of the agents that was out there with her client said that was I think the 10th house they had been to, and they had been in multiple offer situations 5 times.
Wow.
5 times, multiple offer situations. That was kind of like when the seller's market, like when it was transitioning, getting to be more of a seller's market. I think like last year really started transitioning it because we had so many people moving from out of state.
Right, to the upstate. To
the upstate. So, I mean, it's been gradual, but it's gotten worse, especially in certain price points. Probably like 140 to 200,000 is, I mean, it's crazy. It's crazy.
It's going to continue to grow too. It reminds me of Miami, Florida back in the 90s. Mm-hmm. And back then, you might find a 2-3 bedroom for like 80, 90,000. Mm-hmm. And then now you go to Miami in the same neighborhood, the house is going for like 300,000.
Yeah.
So it's going to continue. The upstate of South Carolina is going to experience the same thing, that type of growth.
Right. So I say that because I wanted to stress on being cash heavy and having, like, you don't want to go underprepared because it's not going to do you any good as a buyer to have to go take yourself through that.
Right.
It's better just to prepare yourself, go through our podcast and watch. I'm giving you all of the steps to get prepared. So when you get to this and you want to get under contract, you're able to do so.
And on the podcast, there's an actual section just for a playlist. So like the playlist breaks down Wednesday. So if you just want to go into the Wednesday playlist, it shows all of the episodes only for Real Estate Wednesday. If you just into sports and you just want to watch football, you can just go into the playlist for Friday football. Or if you're into wealth building, then you can just go into the playlist for Wealth Building Monday.
Yep. So I really wanted to, I know I kind of got off of the getting under contract.
No, that was good.
It's so important. So important. So once you go through this process of getting the offer accepted. So we talked about when the offer is accepted, it's called a ratified contract. Ratified contract. Are y'all still taking notes? I told y'all last week to take notes. Look, he threw his notebook and he ain't even picked it up yet. Ratified contract. So then you start the process of, the house, then write this, not on your hand. Oh my goodness. No, seriously. So a lot of people will send their buyer agent houses that they find on Zillow, Realtor, these third-party websites, right? And agents want to pull their hair out because a lot of times they're under contingency. And for you guys, contingency contract means
I started off checking it every other week, just like most people do. Then it got out of control. I couldn't help myself. I started checking it day after day after day. I didn't realize that I was becoming addicted until my wife said something.
What did she say?
She said, it's just a credit score, relax.
Are you checking your credit score?
Hold on.
that there is a ratified contract on that house and there are contingencies that have to be met, meaning you can't get that house. It's
Well, it's
under
good for them to
contract.
learn. Yeah, it's good.
It's
that they
under
learn that
contract,
now.
right?
Yeah, yeah. And
So-
this will help the buyers too. I mean,
Right.
so the people out there that sees this, it'll help them. Like, well, I learned that, so I don't know if I'm going on Zillow
One of these
or
sites.
Remax
I
or
mean,
whatever.
it's not a bad idea to have your agent at least look the property up to see if it's really under a contingency contract.
Right.
But most of the time, if you see it under contingency or pending or, you know, one of those words, then that means there's a ratified contract on that property. They could be taking backup offers, but in this market, typically they're not, because
Backup offers mean what?
that means that it's under contract, but if they feel like the contract is not
Borderline,
firm,
maybe.
right, or they're experiencing issues through the process, then they may start taking backup offers and say, well, if the contract falls through, meaning it's going to go back on the market, then we'll contact you first because you have a backup offer on here.
Interesting.
But typically in this market, they're able just to put it back on the market, and if it's in that price point, they're able to get it right back under contract anyway. So they're really not too concerned with that, with it being a seller's market. So just remember, if it's contingency or if it's pending, one of these words, then that typically means that they're working through the contingencies of that offer, that ratified contract now that was presented. So that's what contingency means. So once you, the buyer, go under contract for yourself and have a ratified contract on the property that you found, then your agent's going to take you through the contingencies of your contract. So what we're going to do to continue the process and the step-by-step is we're going to take you on a learning the contract and contingencies. It may be 1 or 2 episodes that we go through, and we just discuss all the contingencies, what they mean, and how the process looks like for those contingencies in most cases, so that everyone has an understanding of what you have to do, what your duties are as the buyer, and what the agents, your buyer's agent's duties are to keep on track and to make sure that you're staying within timeframes that are put in that contract.
You know, it's like these people out here that's in the podcast, they're gonna be, if they're not going through the pyramid group. I don't know why they wouldn't.
You should.
You should. But if they're not, and say they already signed, they have an agent already, and they're gonna be like, oh, well, the agent's gonna say something, and I'm like, well, I got a question about that because I watched this podcast and I'm interested to know if they're gonna repeat something that they've learned on the podcast.
And I'm doing this to really help buyers. You know, every agent has their flow and they have their way of doing things.
Right.
Me as an agent, I have my flow and I have my way of doing things. That could be completely different than agent over here. It doesn't make them a better agent than me or me a better agent than them.
Right.
It's just they have a different way of doing things than I do. I've learned that most of the time my method works. Hopefully that agent they have perfected whatever their method is, and that works for them as well to make them successful.
Right. So
So-
I want to say that it's more than one way to skin a cat.
So, you know, just because your agent may say something different than what I say doesn't make me more right or them less right or vice versa.
Right.
But it's always good to brainstorm, and maybe it's something that they haven't thought of before or something they haven't tried before or out of their normal method. And you could, just say, hey, I was researching, I watched this podcast, I learned this. What's your thoughts? And they can give you their thoughts.
Yeah, that's good. Yeah. You should always, how do they say it? Question the question. Mm-hmm. Question the question.
So, and you learn, and that's, one of our purposes of this podcast is to really teach buyers. And don't worry, we didn't leave out sellers. We're not leaving out you agents either. So we're just focused on buyers because buyers are the ones that are really having the most difficulty right now in some of these markets. So the more knowledge you have, then the better prepared you are in being that home buyer.
Because knowledge is power.
Exactly.
Yes.
So, but that's it. We're going to jump back in with contingencies of the contract next week. So y'all can continue taking notes and learning things. You have anything to add?
I do have something to add. The outro music. The outro music. And I also want to tell everyone that thank you for staying on the whole episode. If you've seen it up to right now, you watched the entire episode. So thank you. Make sure you just hit the little like button. That actually takes like 1 second. 1 second to click the like button. So click the like button. Also share. I see people are starting to share the podcast.
2 seconds. Okay.
Share the podcast. And most importantly is
subscribe. 3 seconds.
3 seconds. 3 seconds of your life. We're all together. Maybe it's 7 seconds.
7 seconds.
Okay, hold on. Look at that. In 7 seconds, you could have done all of that and been done. Make sure you hashtag YMANation down in the comment section also, so you could go into the cash drawing at the end of the month. And we'll see you on Friday for Friday football.
View what the boss's view. You gotta sacrifice. You wanna move like bosses move.
YMA, Young Millionaires Association. Yeah, see, that's the association.